If you had asked me about Bloody when he was alive, I would have said that he was the sort of guy who would fall off a cliff someday. I don't say this with spite, it's just a fact. He had a reckless exuberance for life that allowed him to judge no one, trust everyone, and yes, defy a natural fear of Mother Nature. He was a force of nature himself, befriending every stranger and embracing every daring adventure with open arms and open eyes. He was the first friend I've ever lost, and I was the last person to see him alive. I had first met him at my running group, the Hash House Area.
Yeah.
We call ourselves a drinking group with a running problem. There are thousands of clubs all over the world. Once you try it a few times, it seems completely natural to enjoy an ice-cold beer before, during, or after a long run. We follow marks that zigzag all over the place, turning tedious running into a fun obstacle course. And after a while, you are given an inappropriate hash name. We called him Bloody Asshole. Or Bloody for short. He got bloody a lot, and some who misunderstood him would call him an asshole. One of my earliest memories of him was when I was at a camp out in Las Vegas. I asked, "Who's the dumbass sleeping on top of the collapsed tent?" He had forgotten most of the poles and been too drunk to set it up anyway. Bloody was 46 years old. He had a shocking blaze of blonde hair you knew would never gray. He was an ex-Marine sporting an assortment of regrettable tattoos that he would never regret. Because Bloody didn't have regrets. Bloody had moved to Las Vegas from Chicago. He showed up one day, ran a trail, and after drinking a beer on top of a cliff, watched the city unfold before him and decided this would be his new home. So he stayed. In Vegas, I watched him shortcut running trails by scaling mountaintops. I watched him make naked snow angels and sled down snowbanks on a pool raft. He ran on the asphalt streets of Vegas in the summer, barefoot, just because he could, and he proudly posted pictures of his blistered feet afterwards. One time we did a run to Hoover Dam. It was an 11-mile loop, and I'd never run that far. He kept egging me on by saying, "Don't be such a homo." It wasn't a slur, he just meant it to motivate me. I questioned his judgment as he jumped a pedestrian barrier and raced up an overpass, but he told me it was fine. I was 100 feet behind him when the cop car pulled me over and made me explain how I missed all the signs explicitly forbidding exactly what I was doing. Bloody kept running forward. I met him at the car, fuming, an hour later. He asked what took me so long and offered me one of the Foster's cans he always drank to celebrate an achievement. It was hard to stay mad at him. The last time I saw him, I had moved back to Washington, D.C., and Bloody had come to visit for a week. I took him to what would be his last hash run. As the group took off, he calmly smoked his one-hitter and sipped from the bottle of undrinkable whiskey I'd given him. "We'll catch him, don't worry," he explained, while I nervously watched everyone else run into a forest. The group stopped for hot chocolate shots, and I remember him having a long talk with the oldest man there. He just went up to him and decided that would be his best friend for the moment. We circled up at the end of the run, and Bloody, wearing shorts and flip-flops in 30 degrees, told a long, rambling joke that ended in me offering everyone a prostate exam. Nobody he met that day forgot him. 3 days later, I got a call from his brother asking if he'd made his flight back to Vegas. I knew Bloody had started school that Wednesday and wouldn't have skipped it for anything. He was a 46-year-old former factory worker getting his BA in history, and he loved it. He was proud. When his brother told me he hadn't shown up for his classes, I knew something was wrong. I recalled Bloody telling me that he had ran a mile to the airport for his flight instead of just parking there. So I had a friend check his apartment, and we discovered that his car was missing. So he had made it back and went somewhere. But where? I emailed the hashing group in Vegas and put the word out. Bloody is missing. We need to find him. Within minutes, they fanned out across Vegas. Our nurses searched the hospitals. Our cops made calls. Others searched all his familiar haunts. I sat home on the other coast and waited. They texted me updates, and I waited on the other side of the country, 6 hours away with nothing to do but wait. A hasher finally discovered Bloody's car in Calico Basin, an area of Red Rock Canyon with dangerous 6,000-foot cliffs. The police were on the scene, but I knew the area well. I hiked there many times and had gotten lost on some of the cliffs. I remember the drop-offs when you didn't go the right way. The police searched the next day. The area is massive, filled with dozens of canyons and huge crevasses between rocks. He could have been anywhere or nowhere. We all knew Bloody wouldn't have turned back if he had a destination. The night wouldn't have mattered, the weather wouldn't have mattered, and that's what scared us the most. I talked to my friends in Vegas every few hours and I felt helpless. They had started to coordinate their own effort. Search and rescue could only do so much. Some of our members were military and police, so they began organizing their own search. They wrangled the well-intentioned and impatient friends and made them look meticulously as they marked it off on giant maps. I wanted to do something. I wanted to be there, but I couldn't, so I set up a group on Facebook to help with the search. Now we had a place to share maps, post updates, and recruit help. I could watch the search unfold and respond to people. I felt like part of this. I felt like I was doing something for my friend. I called my buddy in Vegas leading the effort. He said, "You know what we're looking for." I knew. Bloody was an ex-Marine, and most places in Red Rock were a shout away from help. There were climbers and hikers all over. All my friends knew silently that we were looking for a body. And we all knew the reasons we kept looking. His family. His family had hope. We talked to his brothers and sisters. We watched their frantic messages on the search page. The only thing we could do was to help them find a body to bury. But nobody said that out loud. We were doing the only thing we could. The only way we could show how much we loved him was to look after his family. If we were helpless to save our friend, at least we could give his family closure. I half-assed did my job the next day and followed the string of updates. I fielded calls, sent emails, and designed flyers and answered questions online. It's strange to be part of something when you're on the other side of the country. I knew if I could have, I would have used all my vacation and searched until we found him. Instead, I watched screens. Meanwhile, the hashers reached out to each other from across the country. Bloody had friends from everywhere he went. We're like a loving, dysfunctional family. The drunk uncle you always invite to Christmas dinner. Donations poured in. People drove up that weekend and searched until they could barely walk. I needed part of him to hold on to. Everyone knew him as well as me, was out looking for him. I scrolled through old phone messages and Facebook chats, realizing they would be our last. I used to send him photos of 400-pound women. He would accuse me of getting gangbanged by homeless men. I tell him I prefer that to him. He once replied, "Dude, if I dropped my drawers for you, you would see flashing arrows and a huge neon sign saying, 'Enter only.' Love you anyway, bro." It made me laugh, then it made me cry a little. This sucked. The search continued in Las Vegas. Offers of help kept pouring in on the Facebook page, and I was able to answer their questions. Even at that time, it was a bit funny to try to explain to strangers about Bloody. Did he leave a map? Bloody didn't use maps. Did he tell anyone where he went? Bloody didn't do that. Which trail did he follow? Bloody didn't follow trail. Did he have correct hiking attire? Probably a couple bottles of Foster's, maybe a shirt. But probably not. It went on like that. I thought about all these people who had come together, hashers, hikers, and strangers, half of them searching for someone they'd never meet. It gave me comfort. There was a strange beauty in it. I talked to one of my good friends who wrote for one of the Las Vegas newspapers. I explained what was going on. Over 1,000 people were trying to help. We'd over 200 feet on the ground. Fellow military veterans had called in search planes. He had brought all these people together. The front page story ran a couple weeks later. I wish we could say we finally found his body, but that happened months later. A hiker found him miles away from where we were looking. Bloody had tried to make a jump and missed. It had been fast. He hadn't suffered. There's a secret plaque nearby that commemorates the spot. Some friends put it up. It's not really legal, but it seems appropriate for him. Periodically, those who miss him hike out to it and toast him with the Fosters. It's weird to think I'll never see him again. I miss him. He was an asshole, but damn it, he was our asshole. We all found our ways to memorialize him. We printed running shirts. We ran the Tough Mudder race as Team Bloody Asshole. 2 years later, friends still dedicate crazy achievements to him and toast him in bars. One thought stands out in particular. A friend had posted, "Today, I ran forever. My best friend in a long time because you were there with me the whole time." A few weeks later, I ran my first half marathon, and when it got hard towards the end and I wanted to quit, I imagined him next to me, telling me not to be such a homo.
All right.